Base building is about to become the biggest addition to Star Citizen, and once the beacons are placed, the plots are claimed, and the foundation is laid, you won't be able to play this game alone ever again. This is because there are a lot of new implications with the information we were given during CitizenCon that they plan to work on over the next 12 months. Will we have it in the game by the end of next year? No shot, but I'm willing to bet that we will see a bigger demonstration of base building in-game during CitizenCon 2024. What is planned for base building? What could it look like? And how could this truly push the boundaries of this already ambitious game? Grab your seats, your munchies of choice, and your coffee, and get ready to have so many questions that will leave you wanting more. And stick to the end of this video for information on yet another feature that has massive implication that ties heavily into base building. Welcome back to the channel where we dive into the world of Star Citizen and cover news and updates on what is easily the most anticipated game of all time and the most controversial. This has been one of the most discussed topics people have theory crafted since land claim beacons were sold over 6 years ago, and when I first began writing about the topic and doing the research, I quickly realized how much information there was about base building. While we can easily say tons of features would change the game in the future, base building is undoubtedly a feature that will take the game from space sim to space MMO. All of this and more could push it to become one of the biggest games of all time. Well, whenever they add it to the game. And everything else that's on the list. Yes, there are many of them, and yes, some could argue that CIG is way behind on their long list of promised features they've yet to deliver on. But we're here to discuss the future and the many ramifications that come with the massive potential of this game. When we originally got information on player-owned bases back in 2017, when the Pioneer was sold, we were told that player-owned bases and construction would utilize the modular HABs that currently exist throughout Stanton. But that concept has evolved with the most recent information from CitizenCon that provided us with a glimpse of the future of what base building will look like. In Star Citizen, there are different types of systems starting with high security sectors controlled by the UEE. These systems have the highest taxes and fees associated with player-owned bases that require a land claim beacon to be purchased. These bases are fully protected by planetary shields and UEE security and are invulnerable with little to no legal activity or goods. Higher security zones offer a great location to store high-level resources and craft items safely. While you can still mine resources at these locations, these resources will typically be of lesser value, given that most high-security systems have been heavily mined throughout the years since their discovery. Developing systems are low-security zones and consist of settlers, corporations, and possibly smaller UEE government entities. Developing systems have the lowest taxes and fees required to establish a base and also require a land claim beacon. These bases are only partially protected by local security forces that will defend your base if attacked. These locations would be best suited primarily as a base where you'll be able to gather resources of medium value used in crafting and trade. Unclaimed systems are lawless systems that have no official governing or corporate entity and are often run by criminal organizations and syndicates. These systems have no taxes or fees, no beacon required, and there is no security to defend your base outside of your own turrets and shield generators. These locations are where you'll want to establish a large force that can act as a quick reaction force that you can defend your resource operations and will have high value resources that are used for high level crafting and trade. Alternatively, you can build a base in these lawless systems as a temporary location to gather resources, and then dismantle the base and move to a new location for better resources. But to what level of protection will we be given or be possible for each of these locations? And how will CIG implement features for players to hack their way into low security and lawless zones, steal keys to break into bases, and any other unintended mechanics? I bet that at some point when we see more information on base building, they will have at least some of these figured out. If you enjoy videos like this and want to stay connected and get the latest and most up-to-date information on Star Citizen, make sure to subscribe and click the bell to receive notifications so you don't miss out on future updates. Land claim beacons in the world of Star Citizen are called geotachs that drill into the ground and burrow a beacon beneath the ground. These geotachs can be destroyed, but the beacon cannot. And doing this is a criminal offense and does not have any impact on who holds the legal title on that plot of land. There are two sizes of these beacons: lots and estates. A lot is 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers, and an estate is 8 kilometers by 8 kilometers. For reference, Skyrim's map is 6.85 kilometers by 5.42 kilometers, and PUBG's Sandhawk map is 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers. This gives us a massive amount of room for setting up large-scale bases for both large and small orgs, and allows you to show and add ownership based on the needs of the player or organization. Once the beacon is placed, you can begin to either build each building on site, or you can plan ahead without being on location and set up your base exactly as you want it before placing a single building. This will also show you the materials necessary to begin building your base. There are 4 main vehicles and tools that you can use to build a base. The Surveyor tool is capable of building small buildings that would be best used for solo and small groups of players. This will probably be a great start for those learning the ropes of base building or just beginning to make their mark on the verse. I see these being utilized primarily as a temporary base for resource gathering or crafting. A new unspecified anvil vehicle is your next step in your journey of base building, where you just reached enough resources and are capable of building up to a medium-sized base. Perfect for taking your new or existing resource gathering operation to the next level and building larger buildings that will be capable of increasing efficiency or providing a medium level of power generators, extractors, utilities, defensive systems, and producers that I'll expand on later in this video. The RSI Galaxy is for the groups that need a large-scale operation and have the resources necessary to establish up to a large-sized base. Whether you're in high security, low security, or lawless space, the Galaxy will be your best bet at building larger buildings that will give you the capability to take your bases to the next level, giving you even more efficient and powerful buildings than the previous levels. Finally, the Pioneer is when you need the largest base possible and need to have only the best equipment for establishing a permanent base in whatever location you and your org have deemed best. The Pioneer is capable of building anywhere from small to extra large buildings, giving you access to some of the best buildings money can buy, and also operates as a mobile base. All of these methods will allow you to place buildings, view resources beneath the surface of your base site, place multiple buildings before you build, show you the materials required, allows you to move or deconstruct buildings, and manage the resource network where you can link power between buildings. Once your buildings are built, you can place items in them or place items around them that can be purchased or crafted using a fabricator. Base building comes with 5 different building categories, each capable of specific functions. Starting with extractors, these resource gathering buildings come with different variations and capabilities such as mining extractors that focus primarily on gathering minerals and metals beneath the surface of the moon or planet that are used for crafting and even for trading. Drills and pumps, I speculate, would primarily focus on gathering liquids and gases deep beneath the surface that could be used in crafting, but also used for fueling different types of generators or even refueling ships with hydrogen. And water extractors could be used for many different things, such as providing drinking water for you and your crew, to perhaps being able to be converted into oxygen for bases that are on planets or moons with no breathable atmosphere, or hydrogen for refueling ships. These extractors will not be fully automated and will require some level of player engagement. Wear, tear, and misfires may also occur as the equipment degrades and will require necessary repairs that are associated with constant operation. They will also be upgradable to increase their efficiency and resiliency. But how much will we be able to upgrade them? And what are some of the many resources we could mine with them? Power generators do exactly what you think they might do, providing power for your entire base of operations, and have different specializations such as geothermal, which needs reservoirs of hot water, solar, which requires ample sunlight, windmills that require a high enough level of wind, fuel generators that require a constant source of fuel, fusion power, and batteries that are capable of storing and distributing excess power. Each of these generators will depend on the planet or moon your base is located on. As solar will not work in darkness, fuel generators will need players to refill as needed, and fusion power will need radioactive components. It is likely as well that CIG will make these buildings have upgrade paths to make them more powerful, more efficient, or even more resilient. Producers are your profit makers that will require players to combine different resources to produce new items such as fabricators that are often used for crafting decorations, weapons, armor, or even ships, and come in different sizes. These machines are limited by materials and need blueprints in order to create these items and create physicalized entities that have different stats and qualities that depend on the quality of materials used. Hydroponic farms are vertical towers used for growing plants in nutrient-rich water with very little soil, and can provide even larger volumes of plants and food in a small space and provide harvestables that are used in crafting, food, pharmaceuticals, and many other items that might require perishables. These farms may also give players another option to produce oxygen for bases that are on planets or moons with no breathable atmosphere. Refineries are industrial processing plants that transform and refine raw minerals and metals into pure, possibly even stronger forms of themselves that can have higher stats and value than their raw form, and will be essential for crafting many different things such as weapons, armor, or ships using fabricators. Will we be able to provide a constant input of materials and have our refineries auto-process them, or will we have to manage them directly in order to maintain their output? And will they be specialized like existing refineries in the verse? Pharmaceutical producers will provide us with medicines to heal ourselves or lower our blood drug levels, legal drugs to remove the effects of injuries or increase adrenaline, and illegal drugs that may have intoxicating effects to players while giving them superhuman strength. Now granted, the medical system right now is still very lacking, and while my statement of illegal drugs giving you superhuman strength is speculative, it does make you wonder what might come later down the road. Bases will be very valuable locations for players and organizations and a prime target for pirates and outlaws. So the real question is, how will we defend them? While each system will have security forces to defend bases, aside from lawless space, players also have the ability to build defensive systems such as turrets for anti-air defense, anti-personnel defense, and anti-armor defense. We will also have methods for protecting our base from sudden bombs and torpedoes from orbit. Shield generators will protect you from those pesky A2s that fly by and drop bombs on our bases in the hopes that they can just kill us off in one fell swoop. This piece in base building will be yet another thing that they need to get right, as we will need to have broad defensive options that can ensure the safety and security of our invaluable bases against players and NPCs alike. Utility buildings provide a very important level of infrastructure for our bases that will allow us to store items and resources, land ships and store vehicles, provide other players a storefront or trading post to buy and sell goods, and much more. These essential buildings will likely vary between many different types, some confirmed and some speculative. Garages are crucial in calling and storing ground vehicles, especially for our base where we'll be able to scout nearby resources, deploy tanks and other defensive or offensive vehicles, or be able to move larger containers around from one side of the complex to another. Freight elevators will provide storage for containers where we can securely store any cargo that is offloaded or loaded onto transport ships, and gives us a centralized location for distributing resources, materials, and items throughout our base. I can see this as being a very busy hub for players as they move cargo on and off ships. This ties directly into landing pads where ships will be able to land in order to refuel, rearm, repair, and load and unload cargo, and will more than likely be directly connected to freight elevators to assure ease of operations. Storefronts will essentially link utility buildings, extractors, and producers together and provide a way for players to buy and sell resources, materials, crafted items, and even ships, and give your base a direct way to make profit without the need to transfer items for sale. I believe it will be fundamental to give these storefronts the capability to be connected to a global economy and storefront that will allow players to travel to your base to pick up the item, or pay a delivery fee to a player or NPC to have it brought to them directly. This could be the first beginning of the delivery pilot profession. Other utility buildings would consist of habitation buildings, storage with the ability to give groups or individual access, communications equipment for contacting players or NPCs several systems away, engineering and repair facilities for repairing weapons, armor, ships, and components, and finally equipment to provide adequate lighting throughout your base. All of this comes down to one of the most important phases of base building, even before any plots are claimed, buildings constructed, or even large movement of resources, and that is risk management. Many organizations, both small and large, would be wise to focus on a well thought out plan that lines out the cost to benefit ratios for establishing a larger base, and that comes down to 1, the scale of the base, such as what tools, vehicles, ships, and resources will be required during the initial phases of construction. 2, the size of the base and the physical extent and approximate number and size of the buildings that will be needed for an efficient, long-term resource gathering location. 3, the detectability of the base and how its radar signature, power output, and size may show up on scans, and also the capability of the base to scan nearby. 4, the staffing requirements of the base, how many players or NPCs would be needed for a dynamic operation, and what its overall cost would be to operate in order to ensure profit margins. And 5, differing relative security in the system, nearby orbital bodies, and the immediate and surrounding location, including any fees associated, or logistical requirements for sustaining security. I honestly think that this will be the most vital part of base building, and I'm curious to see how it might look once this feature is implemented in the game. While some of our questions about base building were answered at CitizenCon, how will things like spacing buildings factor into this new feature? How will environmental factors be calculated into it, such as atmosphere, hazards, and weather? How will the logistical challenges of a multi-system supply chain impact the base design of players versus how CIG wants bases to be? How will permissions work within bases? And will we be able to build roads? Base building will be a massive feature that could change Star Citizen into an even bigger game than many have anticipated, and will be a crucial feature to get at least mostly right. While I'm skeptical about when we will see this, I do believe that it has a lot of potential for the future of the game, and I'm curious and remain cautiously optimistic for base building. Blueprints are part of the crafting gameplay loop that was only briefly talked about, and is going to be my next topic of a discussion in a future video where I'll discuss crafting and blueprints as a whole. We know that there will be different quality levels for blueprints, and each item crafted will have different stats and quality based on the level of materials used. But what will this look like? Will there be a skill-based minigame? All of this will come in the next episode of the Future of Star Citizen. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to click the like and subscribe and check out these videos for more. I hope that you all have a wonderful week and have a happy new year. Havoc out.